pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Supervisor Alexapian.
Present.
Trustee Dean Morelli.
Here.
Trustee Karen Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Ron Alberico.
Here.
Trustee Dion Wright, absent. Assessor Marianne Williamson, absent. Highway Commissioner Jim Louch.
Here.
Collector Jessica Canday and Attorney Gary Mueller are both absent.
Thank you. So first item on the agenda for the Road and Bridge Fund tonight is the approval of minutes from the monthly meeting of August 5th, 2025. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Ron Alberico. Do we have any questions on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bills. I have bills in the amount of $152,678.70. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Dean Morelli. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Sapia.
Yes.
Morelli.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Alberico.
Yes.
Right, motion carries. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight in regards to Road and Bridge Fund? Hearing and seeing none, move on to the Highway Commissioner's report. Commissioner Louch, the floor is yours.
Just want to report that road projects for the summer seem to be completed. However, we did just go out for bid, going out for bid for Gasky Drive, just to get some numbers on that particular project. But on all the other roads, they seem to be completed and turned out well.
Thank you. No other business to report. Does anyone on the board have any final questions or comments?
Jim, I was just wondering, I know they've been doing some sidewalk work up in the bottom gray area and that. I mean, do you know how much is left or how much they're planning on doing up there still? Or?
I think they're completed for our list for this year.
Okay.
But there's
Quite a bit more
quite a
that needs to
bit
be
more.
done. Yeah.
And that's another thing. And we went out to get a grant for Safe Roads. It has to do with schools and kids going to school by the local school there. And we're trying to put that together, trying to do a bigger chunk at one time.
Sure.
Well, I have no other business to report under Road and Bridge. Could I entertain a motion to adjourn the Road and Bridge Fund meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Dean Morelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Road and Bridge Fund meeting is adjourned. Moving on now to the Lockport Township regular meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes for this month. One is for Town Senior GA for the monthly meeting of August 5th, 2025. And the second is for the special meeting dated August 29th, 2025. I will need a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Dean Morelli. Any questions on either sets of minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the approval of the bills. I have three sets of bills for tonight, and they are as follows. For town, $185,343.38. Senior, $44,709.90. And for general assistance, or GA, $30,228.12. Are there any questions from the board in regards to any of these three sets of minutes?
I did have a question on the GA on the computer program that we got. I think I might just have stored it away differently than what's happening. I thought that we, paid a one-time fee like $5,000, and then it was not all that much per year. Is this like the annual relicensing, or why? Is that what those 3 or 4 different charges? I'm assuming that's for the computer program for GA.
Would you mind pointing to which one? I'm not aware of us renewing this past month.
I looked at it on the Yeah, the velocity of technology.
Oh, sure. So for Visual GA, you were correct in that it's a $5,000 one-time installment fee, and then from there it's about $1,250 every year. I believe that renews in the springtime, so we did just recently pay it a couple months ago. So for Velocita, that's just the portion. So Velocita covers our security, you know, the clerk's office, assessor's office, town senior, GA, etc. This is just the portion that we pay out of general assistance.
Wow. So we pay a lot for
And so it's like we pay, basically it's like we pay Velocita for everything, and then we kind of take turns paying out of town, paying out of senior, paying out of GA. So it's proportionally kind of distributed per fund. Does that make sense?
that. Yeah. The ones coming out of the town aren't all that substantial.
Yeah. I know for Velocita in particular, it's like we pay for the server backup, and then of course the security program. And then on top of that, it's also like the email domains. We switch from a yearly basis to a monthly basis. So that's why there's like several different charges there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on, again, either town, senior, or GA bills? Hearing none, if I could entertain a motion to approve all three sets of bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Ron Alberico. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Morelli,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Alberico,
Yes.
Sapien.
Yes. Moving on, do we have any public comments from residents tonight? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to discussions and approvals for tonight. So we'll start off with the building report. So for the building report, I have a brief update on the parking lot and expansion. Okay, I do have a brief update on the parking lot expansion. As the board knows, but just as a quick refresher, we did have a special meeting on August 29th where we did approve the new proposal, the new engineering proposal for the parking lot. Quick update on that, I did let the engineer know that the board was happy and good at looking at the proposal. I do understand that there were some questions in regards to the lighting and how in the proposal there was the site lighting design services were left out of the proposal. And so I reached out to the engineering firm and I asked them, why the site lighting design was left out and whether that was a service they just didn't offer in general, or if that's an additional service that we have to pay for, in addition to the proposal. And so the email I received back was that they do not offer site lighting design services or a photometric study. They can assist us with the general process, but again, they do not have the program for photometric studies. If we, the township, have a manufacturer that we can use for existing site lighting, then they may provide what the city requires. So to answer the board's question regarding site lighting, it looks like we'll have to find another engineer, another firm that could give us some insight on lighting. Of course, I'm open to the board for suggestions, whether we want to go that route. I could also ask the engineer if they have any referrals or recommendations. But at this point, I'll open it up to the board for discussion.
I think it's rather relatively important to put lights in while the parking lot's getting done, or at least get an idea what it's going to cost us to put lights in while this is being done, as opposed to waiting until afterwards and maybe having to dig up some of our parking lot to put lights in. So I would ask the contractor or the engineers, what's the best route to go from here to get a price, at least get an idea what it's going to cost to put lights and light poles up in the parking lot, so we can have an idea.
Yeah, because maybe we even just go to a vendor and get quotes, because they might actually do that before the parking lot is done.
Okay. I will do that, and I will keep the board posted. Any other thoughts or questions regarding the parking lot?
Maybe, if our engineer doesn't have any information, or as far as who to go to, maybe the city, which I'm sure they deal with quite a bit, might have an idea.
I'll reach out to the city manager as well. That's a good idea. I'll reach out to both the engineer and the city manager and see what they recommend. Awesome. All right, thank you. So moving on now to the second portion of the building report, and that's a quick update on the garages, both the new and the old garage. Specifically, it's to discuss proposals for garage floor coating. We do have our senior maintenance staff here tonight. We're very grateful that he's able to join us. Just a quick little description for the board. So, as you all know, we constructed the new garage not too long ago, and we have both the old and the new garage that have just the standard concrete flooring. So in discussions with staff, we thought it would be a good idea, especially with the upcoming winter months, and given that we have vehicles going in and out and staff regularly walking there, we thought it would be a good idea to have, to coat the floor. Again, that would help with weather, it's non-slip, etc. Other garages, for example, have it, right? For example, like industrial garages, industrial equipment. For example, like the highway commissioner's garage, not to pick on the highway commissioner, for example, has it, just as an example for everyone. And so senior maintenance was nice enough to actually just reach out to several vendors and just get quotes on what that would potentially cost us. And so I did include a quick page in everyone's packet, as well as the quotes from 3 vendors. And so it has a brief summary, but in total, both the new and old garages have a little over 3,000 total square feet. And again, we have 3 vendors, each with varying price levels. But with that, I'm hoping I can turn it over to Dave, who's here from Senior Maintenance, who can give a little explanation. And then, of course, if the board has any questions, they can please ask Dave after he's finished.
Good evening. First, certainly I'm no garage floor coating expert, but I've talked to 3 vendors with them. They all pretty much, same thing, they come in with a grinder. This is really going to, I think, protect the investment, especially with the new garage, and prolong the life of the old garage. The floors, it's easier to clean, repels oil, any kind of fluids that might leak out of vehicles or anything like that. I'll just use this as a quick example. Shortly after we opened the new garage, we had the community fun day. We generally put tents up. That day just happened to be very blustery, right? And I was scrambling to figure out what we were going to do. I moved a couple of vehicles out of the garage, and we used the inside of the new garage for the residents and to come and sit and eat their food from the food trucks that we had set up. I was able to put the door down a little bit, but it gave them a pretty good shelter. So inevitably there was stuff that spilled on the floor, and it was brand new, so I was a little bit pulling my hair out with that, you know what I mean? So I did reach out and get some quotes for these garage floors. They do come in with a grinding system, so they grind down the floor to a degree, get as level as they can. They clean any kind of, or take care of any kind of cracks that are existing in the floor. We do, believe it or not, have some cracks in the floor in the new garage already. Dean knows a lot about concrete. I think sometimes they pour concrete and they're almost guaranteeing it to crack. So they take care of a lot of that. So it's really going to help maintenance-wise. It'll help prolong the life of the floor. I know it's concrete and it sounds pretty solid, but also we're going to have this no-slip stuff put in there, so that will help out. Bus drivers come back. Bus, I know we haven't had it yet, but we do get some puddling in the garages. Not necessarily the new one, but the old garage where we still keep the senior buses at. So I kind of thought about it and talked a little bit about it with Alex and stuff like that. I think it's a good way to go. Like Alex may have mentioned, the highway department, Jim, I think you're pretty happy with your floor, and you guys are in and out with a lot of equipment and slush and stuff like that, and you can keep it clean. Not that we have a lot of visitors, but when we do, I think we just protect our investment for the most part and prolong the life of not only the old garage and the new garage. All the companies seem to be very detail oriented. It's not like a 2-day thing, you're in and out. It's about a 4 or 5 day process. We'll have to keep vehicles out of the garage and let it cure and everything like that. So, and I can, if need be, get a hold of a couple of the salesmen. They said they'd be available if there was any more further questions, or if there's anything else you would have for me, I could hopefully get you some type of an answer.
Thanks, Dave. Do you have any questions for Dave? Karen?
So what is this called? It's not like an epoxy thing that some people have or something, or is
It's
that?
very similar to that, but it's a little bit, they seem to be changing over to, and all the people that I talk, or all the companies I talk to, seem to be changing over a little bit to the formula. It's not like the two-part thing you buy at Home Depot to do your garage yourself. They come in and it's almost like the epoxy that you get in the tube that has the two things and it pre-mixes. So they pre-mix everything before they apply it. We kind of opted, like Jim has at the highway department, just the solid color. That's what we were kind of thinking of, not the flaky stuff, because I think sometimes that takes away from the strength of the material. I think, it's not getting a good bond. So we did talk about that, and it's a silica product that they use for the non-slip, and they are, it's this OSHA rated NSAI thing. They've got to have so much coverage per foot, and they all follow that directive by that entity. So, like I said, we spent a lot of money on that garage, the new garage especially, and I think it would be a good way to protect our investment. And while it's still pretty clean right now, the concrete we haven't had too many spills or anything in there yet, but eventually we will with oil and stuff like that. So.
Okay, one other question, because I don't know this, but I know I heard something years ago that when you have a new house, if the basement's going to crack, it's going to do it in the first 2 to 3 years or so, and so wait and do that. But for a cement floor, would it make sense to wait a little bit longer so it's been there about a year, or does that not matter?
I don't think now so much with the technology that they have with this, the formula that they put on there, this epoxy thing. And like I said, they go through and any existing cracks, they grind out and they fill with a binder. And then, this is after they grind, they fill with a binder and then they put some type of material that's like a full coat binder type thing on there. So I think it really, I don't want to say that they couldn't crack underneath it, but I don't think it would make the finish crack.
Yeah. No, I get that. I just wonder, because the foundation might be settling for a year. I just don't know, how do we find that out? What's the recommendation on a new pour? How long do you wait
Yeah,
for the
I
cracks
explained.
that will come to come?
I explained to all the salespeople that were here that we had just pretty much opened up this garage for our use in March. They didn't seem to have any worries about it being a newer concrete thing. So I don't know this company personally, but I do know probably about 8, maybe 10 people that had their garages done from there, and some of them for quite some time now. Personal garages, obviously not the size of these, but and they look like they did 5 years ago. They clean them all the time. Easy to keep clean, so they hold up, at least from the one company that was in there. So.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on why that one company was so much less than the other two?
If you look at their quotes, they're giving us some pretty good discounts. They had some sales going on, some things. We're getting a military discount because we got the VA here. So, and I think there's I want to say friends and family discount, and that part of that's coming, once again, I don't know this company, other than some people that I know that they've worked for. I think we're getting some type of a discount with that, but you can look down their line items there or what have you and see what the price was, and it's pretty close to those other ones, and then they start giving those discounts. I think if we do the 2 buildings, I think we're getting a little bit of a discount with that for doing a multiple.
Yeah, so about $7,000 in discounts.
Unit thing there. So, I mean, if you look at the total price, they're all pretty much about the same. That company, for whatever, they're a pretty big company. They're nationwide. They do heliport or hangars for helicopters, and those get rolled in and out. They don't have wheels on helicopters, so very durable. You can look at their websites or what have you, and it's pretty amazing. They do firehouses, police stations, all kinds of municipal buildings, high school buildings. They do pretty, like for their vehicles and bus barns and stuff and such. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Ron, Dean, any questions for Dave?
So that was that garage flooring expert. You say that, after you looked at it, was there one that you would recommend?
I would recommend them. And I was just, he showed me on an iPad that he had the different places that they've done, the firehouses and like I said, the thing I was really most impressed with were these hangars for these helicopters, you know, and they're like the light flight helicopters, so they're in and out all the time, you know, and they're dollied out, you know, and it's just, it seems to be a pretty solid company. They seem to be the most, I would say, detail-oriented with their procedures or their process to do it. I know here about Mark Murtaugh that does our grass cutting. His garage was done by this outfit, and he's had it for well before COVID. I know that, and it looks like he just had it put in 2 weeks ago. To be honest with you, if you went by his garage and saw that, so. And I think they're giving us a pretty good. You know, you look at the other ones; they're $8, $9 a square foot, if I remember correctly, and these guys are under $6. So.
And the new garage, they did some kind of a treatment or something to that floor.
Yeah, that was just like a concrete sealer. It was it wasn't anything major. Like, right, you could go out and see the floors. I mean, it's dirty now. I mean, probably pressure washer or what have you know, to get it back to what it was brand new, you know. But it was just they had a pump sprayer type thing, and they went around. I think they rolled the edges, so it was just almost like a grout sealer when they put tile in. It's a real, not a very solid protectant, I wouldn't say, or something. It had to be applied, you know, quite a bit over time.
Yeah, and the bid requirement was what, 30,000 or more?
30,000. How does the board feel about potentially approving one of these proposals tonight?
I'm all for it. Being in the building trades and working with epoxies and hybrid paints, I know what this is all about, and I think the garage is good to have it done. I have one of my garages, actually one of the other companies, a higher bidder, did mine, but that floor stands up great today, and it's been 6, 7 years ago, probably 10 years ago. Yeah, I put that floor in. Looks great. Easy maintenance. I think it does protect the floor, so I'd be all for it.
Awesome. Karen, Dean?
I'm good.
I think we can pick somebody tonight.
Okay. Do we have a preference for either of these three?
I would make a motion to approve the garage flooring experts at $5.75 a square foot at $17,265.
I have a motion by Ronald Rico. Do I have a second?
Sure, I second.
Second by Karen Johnson. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Alberico?
Yes.
Sapien?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Motion carries. Dave, thank you so much.
Okay.
You know, we very much appreciate you being here. I know the board does as well, and we appreciate everything you do for the township. So
My pleasure.
we'll talk more
Have
about
a good
the
evening. We can
proposal.
speak tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
All
Thanks,
right,
Dave.
thanks.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Moving on now to reports. First report up is the clerk's report. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Supervisor. The clerk's office has been very consistent with daily notaries and distributions of baby diapers. We're excited to announce that our baby diaper program is expanding. United Way of Will County has received sizable federal grant money through the county, and as a result, there is now more supply available. Our baby diaper program now includes more diaper sizes, wipes, and pull-ups. We can now provide up to size 8 for diapers and up to size 6T, 7T for pull-ups. Our previous supply was only diaper sizes newborn to size 6, with no pull-ups or wipes unless we received a donation of these supplies. As one of the busiest distribution locations for this program, we are so happy that we can better serve Will County with a wider selection of supplies. I have published the public notice of the availability of the audit report in the Herald News. And lastly, I would like to remind everyone that the company HerScan is scheduled to come to the Township Building for 2 events. Once again, HerScan is a traveling organization that offers breast cancer ultrasound screening. They bring their mobile medical team to our location. Their staff handles all pre-registration, sign-ups, and phone calls, along with all marketing materials tailored to our specific needs. They will be here in my conference room on Friday, September 19th, 2025, and Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. This service is open to the public, and the schedule is available by going to www.herscan.com. Appointments are still available, and I would encourage everyone to share this information. It's a great scanning tool, and it's nice to have them decide to visit our township. They will have to pay at their time of service, and they do accept different forms of payment, and all the details are available on their website.
And is this open to just Lockport Township residents?
Open
or
to
both?
everyone, anywhere.
Yeah.
So you can go on there and you can schedule in any state or city. So if you go on and you pick Illinois, then it says Joliet/Lockport, and it'll ask you what dates you want, then it gives you the times.
Okay.
So anyone,
Thank you, Aaron.
thank you.
No assessors report tonight. Moving on to mental health report. So at the time of creating the agenda, I did not have the invoice from August. However, I did later receive it on Friday, so we were able to sneak it into everyone's packets. So for August, if you flip to the second page, we have total expenses a little over $8,600 for this month. That's actually lower than what we've seen in the past couple months, where we've usually typically seen around like the 13,000 mark. Usually in the summer, we do see a bit of a decrease, and then once we get into the colder months and the holidays, we do see a bit of an increase. Right now, we are in the negative for our grant balance. Now granted, we did approve as a board the IGA last month, and we do still have funds in our GA line item for this project. I will say, however, that our current line item general assistance for this mental health project is at $28,000, which roughly as an estimate, that'll be enough to cover us for, let's say, 2 months. And then we have enough, I know, in town in reserves that could cover us an additional month or two if we need it. But if we were to do, let's say, those 3 to 4 months, that wouldn't be enough to cover, say, January, February, which are the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So all I ask for the board is, 1, to keep that in the back of your head, and 2, again, I mentioned before, but to at least, consider us amending the budget before the end of the year so we can continue this program. On another note, I do remember I received a request from the board to ask ThriveWorks for an update on some metrics. That includes response times, the average lifetime sessions from residents, etc., how many new sessions we're getting per month. I did just very recently receive that data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to polish it up and give it to the board in forms of graphs and charts as opposed to numbers. So I'll be sure to do that at the end of this week in our recap email. Any questions or thoughts on this project?
I just have a couple thoughts, I guess. Going through, obviously on the list, the date, description of services, which is obviously this code. And I don't know if there's a way, or if we would even be concerned about what this service is, or if they are all different, because I see at the bottom of the page, it appears that one recipient received like 8 different services for the month of August. And I don't know, I know we've had some type of discussions before as far as maybe putting a cap on this or something. It just seems, like I said, 8 different sessions in a month. I'm not saying it's obsessive, obviously I don't know what this person is going through, but once again I just bring up that we've got no limit on this, and this one person who needs help obviously can continue this service at the township dime, which I believe at some point we need, I don't know if these are in-person counseling, if these are over the phone, if these are virtual, or what all these services are. But I think we're going to have to talk about putting a limit eventually on some of this stuff.
Take away from somebody else.
Well, I'm just thinking that, you know, I know these numbers mean something to somebody, but, you know, you try to go down through these client numbers, and you can see several of them are just a one-time deal, but there's quite a few that are multiple services. And obviously, you know, some are different costs, you know, some are as high as $169, some are as low as $30 or $20. I don't know. Like I said, I just think that we need to know at least a little bit more about not only the service, however, you know, if we are going to let somebody just year after year after year, I mean, are we going to ever put an end to it? I know there's several different, I don't know, I want to say like outfits, like other outreach places where people can reach out. You know, you see it on TV all the time. I mean, there's, you know, for abused children, for abused wives, this and that. There's a lot of help out there. People look for it. Of course, I'm sure probably not a whole lot of it is no cost, but I don't know. I think that, you know, at some point we are going to have to dig a little deeper and make some harsh decisions on this. If, like I said, I know there was talk that the counties are going to jump in and pick it up and maybe refund us, but, you know, there's no guarantee on that. So that's just one of my concerns or thoughts about the whole project.
Sure. I think those are some good points. What I can request with ThriveWorks is, you know, regarding description of service, I see some numbers. I could ask them to see if they'd be willing to give us, you know, match the code to an actual physical, you know, word description. So I'll ask them for that. And then I think metrics-wise, I think it would be a good idea if they're giving us the average of how many sessions people are attending. I think it'd be good to know the extremes, like the minimums and maximums. I'm sure the minimum would be 1, but it would be interesting to see just the overall spread. Maybe like some sort of distribution, so I can certainly ask with that.
Looks like this description of services broken into 3 different segments. Like the first 3 numbers, the second 3 numbers, and then the last 3 numbers seem to be a sequence number from between that one that you pointed out and some others. So it might just be the number of that same type of service that that person received. And you don't know that. I wonder if they have a client number for a family, but it's most of the other ones, if they show multiple, it's once a week. This one, you know, here they have, you know, every couple days rather than weekly, so it might be some special situation, but.
Yeah, I'll also ask about voucher number. I think I'm remembering off the top of my head that if there is a family, maybe they get 1, but I'll double check.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just pointing out, you know, because I know I was told to go through it and
Right.
see what can be figured out. Because I mean, I know on a previous month there was a number that appeared like 7 times. There was 2 different costs. You know, there was 169 and 120. Like Karen said, I don't know if it's different family members or something, but then there was also something that was typed in there on the description that there was no mental health coverage, meaning, you know, obviously that they had no insurance, I would think, but like I said, most of them are the same cost, 120, so I'm assuming that none of them at 120 or 169 had any mental health coverage. I don't know why they typed it in for that one only, but that was, like I said, that was on a previous month.
Yeah, and there was a different price for an initial consultation, but here we see then there's one that's $220 for 1 visit. So what's the
Yeah. Under
difference?
additional comments, which is the top of the
Oh,
first
yeah, the
page,
intake.
there's the breakdown. So, you know, that explains the 120, the 220, and the 169. For the folks that are like you know, I see $20, $45, you know, I think there's a 35, a 75. Those are people who do have insurance, and then we're just covering the copay. But the other folks that are over the, you know, the 120, the 220 range, those are folks without insurance. And by and large, that's people on Medicaid. Just because Medicaid, or, you know, the majority of types of Medicaid don't cover mental health coverage.
And we know that the fire department and the other people and all the Will County health people are in communication about what they do as this becomes a countywide thing, even as we're waiting for the state to fund it. Somebody else recently told me that they thought it takes 2 to 3 years once funding is approved for that, the money to actually come out of the state. So we could be doing this. But again, if they have it written in there, the township will get reimbursed as of July 1st of 2024 once they disperse funds. But still, we can look at that because that might be a way that they can, Dean was saying at some point they go to Will County Health rather than Thrive-Works if they need ongoing therapy. We'll see.
I'll also say I have been paying attention to the Joliet City Council meetings, and I know in one of their most recent City Council meeting in August, their board, their council, you know, and the mayor did approve an amendment to their budget, which would include, the amendment really was just adding in a revenue item for a little over $3 million to fund the mental health project. And I need to double check to see if that's just for the city of Joliet, because the city of Joliet has their own version of this program, or if that, you know, whether that's the first step for the city or whether that's opening up to countywide. But I'll reach out to Joliet Fire and ask them about that. Okay. So moving on now to the senior bus report. So for the senior bus report in August, we had total trips of 524. The buses were operational for 21 business days, which averaged out to 25 rides per day. If we look at the monthly average year to date, we're averaging 522 rides per month. And the average rides per month last month was also 522, so we didn't see any change. Quick note that, you know, compared to 2019, where we were at maximum 632 rides, in 2024 we were at 80% capacity. In 2025 we're at a little under 83%. So we are continuing to see, you know, slow but steady growth. Any questions on the bus report? Moving on to general assistance. So for general assistance, I have the usual 2 reports. One is the system activity report. The second is grant disbursements. So for system activity, we saw a total of 22 applications, 22 individuals apply for general assistance. At the time of filing this report, 3 of them were still in process, 19 of them were not eligible for general assistance. However, you know, of those 21, we applied for emergency assistance. 18 of them were eligible for emergency assistance and 3 of them were not. But of the 18 that were eligible, the total grants amount amounted to $14,372.51. And if we look at grant disbursements, we can see all the utility bills that were paid out that total that same amount, and which matches with our bill list. You'll notice that once again we are continuing to see applications in the high teens and low 20s, which is, you know, almost double what we're used to usually seeing, you know, in the past 12 months. But again, we're expected to continue to see this, and, you know, may continue to see a little bit of some growth. Any questions on the GA reports?
One question, I know, I see what you gave our other guideline on how we're getting to that 200% of the federal poverty level. So there's a maximum payment per month if you're on general assistance, but what about emergency assistance? I know that's just once per year, but is there a maximum payout per person or family on that?
Yes. So I don't have the guidelines of maximum payment and income level for general assistance in the packet. Those are generally set by the state, and they can be updated by the township if needed. We receive, I think in the time that I've been here, I've received maybe 1 or 2 people that were eligible for general assistance. But general assistance, it's meant for individuals who don't qualify for, say, Social Security, SNAP, etc. And what it's meant is, for the purpose of general assistance, is for us to supplement their income in such a way that they'd be able to get by during that month. So while there's a maximum payment of, I think it's close to like $456, you know, one person might receive the full amount, another person might receive $50, another person might receive $100. So it varies. But again, by and large, the people who apply, they might be receiving some assistance, or they might be a little above the general assistance income limit. Because again, usually people that apply, they're doing, you know, they're getting by on their income, but they, you know, they come across some emergency, right? They fall behind, they had an accident, some medical emergency, they have some car repairs, and now they're behind on bills, or they're getting, you know, really behind on rent. So that's when emergency assistance comes in. The guidelines for that are a little bit more, they're a little different, because now we're looking at, just for that 1 month, how can we alleviate so they no longer have an emergency. And so for that case, the guidelines I have in the packet are the maximum income for emergency assistance and the maximum payment. Generally speaking, the maximum payment, it's recommended by TOI and MTA that we revisit them on a yearly basis to adjust for cost of living adjustments. And then the same thing for maximum income limits. We'll revisit them once a year. The reason why we've been revisiting once a quarter is just because we were a little behind on that 200% federal level, so now we're just catching up. And so in this case, you know, you look at Table A, Person 1, 2450. Now in Table B, it's up to 2610. You know, and I think when I presented this back in May, we were at 200% for 2024 levels, but now the 2025 numbers came out, and naturally they went up a little bit, so this is just us readjusting for that. And on that note, our caseworker and I did attend the General Assistance Training on August 20th. That was hosted by the Metropolitan Township Association, which is MTA. They're a subset of TOI that focuses exclusively on the larger suburban townships. It was hosted at Schaumburg Township. It was an all-day training. It was great. The first half of the training focused on, you know, walking through casework, any updates on case law, and then the second half of the program focused on community programs and resources. So, for example, starting projects like mental health, supporting the food pantry, you know, connecting with nonprofits to connect people to resources. So the reason I bring that up is they did have the caseworker and they had an attorney there as well. And, you know, in general, the recommendation is that even though GA is at the discretion of the supervisor's office, it's good practice that any changes are presented at a township meeting, so it's recorded in the minutes. And additionally, when there are changes to, for example, the emergency assistance guidelines, because this technically is an addendum or an amendment to the handbook, right, it's important to add at the top of the page what page in the handbook we're amending, because any resident, if they have any questions, can FOIA or view this handbook at any time. So that's why at the top of the guidelines I'm adding what pages we're amending in the handbook, so then we will then include a copy of these guidelines in the handbook. Does that make sense to everyone? So with that being said, again, I'm just formally stating for the record that we are once again, Lockport Township General Assistance, we're formally adopting the 2017 General Assistance Handbook, as well as the 2009 Emergency Assistance Handbook, which are the most up-to-date handbooks, and which will include updated emergency assistance guidelines, which are included in the packet. All right. Thank you. No new business for tonight. Or excuse me, no old business for tonight. New business, food pantry update. Karen, would you be able to give us a quick update? I know you've been having a couple more conversations.
Yeah, one more conversation about just before the meeting tonight. So he's very apologetic that the bylaws that he furnished us had extra pages, and they may or may not have been the most recent. I'm not really clear on that myself, but computer-wise and administratively, they're not very advanced, so he's apologizing, and he will get us the correct current bylaws as well as the minutes that show that the board has approved those bylaws.
Awesome. Yeah, so just to take another step back and to add on to what Karen said, so, you know, I did individually have an ad hoc meeting with senior management of the food pantry. They had a few questions. You know, Karen, you were able to call and answer the questions. They then provided us with a physical copy of their bylaws, which is what the attorney had requested. They provided them earlier this week. You know, for right now, our main point of contact between the township and the food pantry is our administrator and the food pantry. They provided a copy of their bylaws, which we then forwarded to the attorney, but upon a quick review from the attorney, the bylaws were insufficient for two reasons. One, you know, there were duplicates of pages missing. I think that was just a technical error on the food pantry's behalf. And then second is that the bylaws do clearly state that they were amended recently. And so per the attorney, we need some documentation that shows that said bylaws were approved by their board, right? And they weren't just amended and then handed to us. So the next step, as Karen mentioned, is they'll hopefully be giving us a formal copy of their bylaws as well as proof and documentation that they were approved.
And one significant thing in there is it does provide that on liquidation of the food pantry, it needs to be transferred to an organization that qualifies under 501c3. So we'll explore that more once we have a final copy of the bylaws and make sure the attorney has the whole picture and so forth. But that, again, then if we decide to go forward, that limits our choices. We have to set up a C3.
Any questions on the food pantry? All right, we'll keep everyone posted. Quick update on the newsletter. So I think here everyone may likely have received a copy of the fall newsletter that just got mailed out. I know we actually approved the final copy the Friday before Labor Day, and I was actually a little surprised that people were getting in their mailboxes just this past weekend, so it was a pretty quick turnaround. I know in general with this new vendor we've usually seen about a 2-week lead time, and we saw it to be a little less than a week, so that was good to see. Other thing about the newsletter is the winter newsletter. We usually start, you know, preparing for that and creating work in the month of October. The rough timeline is that in November, right before Thanksgiving, is when we approve the final draft, and then we do that in hopes that residents receive the winter newsletter that first week of December before the holidays and everyone goes on vacation. The other point, I know we're in September, but it's coming up, but because we now offer our newsletter on a quarterly basis, and that puts us above the $30,000 limit, we did have to go out to bid last year. And so because the bid is for the seasonal project of the newsletter, or every 4 issues, we will have to go out to bid once again, you know, relatively soon before the end of the year. And so because the newsletter for the first newsletter next year, that work starts in January and it gets mailed out middle/late February, we will likely have to go out to bid sometime, let's say in November, and then we'll have to select, you know, the winner of the bid in December. So just want to give the board a heads up. Thankfully, you know, 98% of the bid packet will stay the same. I know we'll have to update the hours required for designing a little bit, because now we're designing a bit more. But other than that, it should be pretty straightforward, and I'll keep everyone posted.
So we definitely have to do this every year now.
Yeah, so, okay, so that's the update on the newsletter. Okay, so I have a bigger update regarding Fairmont drainage. It's a bit of a thorough update, but I'll be mindful of everyone's time. So, quick refresher again for the board. So the Army Corps of Engineers, they've been, you know, they're an engineering firm that they work on at the federal level, and they have partnered with the township as well as Will County Land Use to provide the township a pro bono service, where, you know, they did a comprehensive survey of Fairmont in order to find solutions a comprehensive solution for flooding and drainage. Because up until this point, we've been taking funds from CDBG and from the county, which have been providing some very small, solutions. So the Army Corps did recently, on August 19th, host their second meeting here at the township, where they provided a few options to residents, and we received input. The final report from the Army Corps will be prepared and submitted to the township by the end of this month. Now, having said that, the rough estimate, the ballpark estimate the engineers gave us for a full comprehensive solution in Fairmont is about $15 to $20 million. Now, of course, the township doesn't have anywhere near, $15 to $20 million, and so for that we have to look for federal funding. Now, it's broken up into two phases. Southern Fairmont is in the ballpark of $3 to $4 million, and then Central and Northern Fairmont is closer to that $10 to $15 million range. Now, thankfully, we do actually already have allocated to us $5.1 million in ARPA funding. And part of that is thanks to our Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, and we are in discussions with our office to receive more funding. But receiving more funding in the future is contingent on the success and implementation of this $5 million project. The other thing about this ARPA funding is it actually expires completely at the end of 2026, whether we use it or not. And so for that, with the Army Corps, they're going to give us the final report. From there, we have to hire an engineering firm that will take these recommendations. They'll conduct, a bit more studies in Fairmont, and they will then create, what we need for the bid packet, which will then, we'll take it out to bid, we'll hire contractors, etc. And the timeline here is that we would ideally, hire an engineering firm by early November. Okay. But what we have to do before we do go out to bid, obviously this is a very large project, and we can't just go down the street and hire an engineering firm and get a quote, because this is a very large project. So what we will do is, we do have some grant writers that are helping, because this is a mountain of paperwork when we're dealing with federal funding. So the grant writers, whom we have worked with before, they're creating what's called an RFQ, a request for quote. And in that RFQ, it's similar to a bid document in which, it goes out to the public, and we're essentially asking for quotes from any engineering firms that can look at this proposal. They're going to submit their proposal to the clerk's office. They're going to give everything like quality of services, descriptions, cost, estimates, etc. And then over the course of the month of October, our grant writers, as well as any board members who are interested, will be able to provide a review of the engineering firm. Again, this is a professional service, so it's not like a formal bid process, but we want to get as many engineering firms looking at this as possible. We then select an engineering firm. Again, the goal is to award a contract in early November. The board would then look to approve that firm at the November 11th meeting. They would then complete the work in November, December, or January, and then we could go out to bid for the $5 million project as early as next spring, so that they can then complete the project again before the end of 2026. I also do want to point out that this ARPA funding, when we meet directly with consultants from Accenture, they're hired by the county to be the liaison between kind of like the government and the county and provide us a little bit of direction. But they have told us, and they've confirmed formally in paper, that any administrative cost, like our grant writer, right, any mailings to the Fairmont community, as well as the cost of engineering, will be covered under this $5.1 million ARPA funding. So everything for this project, including the Army Corps of Engineers, will be done completely under federal funding. Now, that was a lot of information. Any questions from the board? Questions, thoughts?
So, I keep forgetting what they're called, but what is it? The Army Corps of Engineers. I know this is still in the process, But will they be making a recommendation as to where we go first to use that 5.1 million, or that's gonna be up to the engineering firm that we hire to pinpoint that? Are they gonna be setting priority places within Fairmont to focus that initial amount that we already have?
Gotcha. So you're asking, okay, so the final report is to covering all of Fairmont. You're saying if that 5.1 million, if the Army Corps will provide a recommendation on where to allocate that 5.1 million?
Or what would be the most, you know, what would be phase one? Like where is it under most, or where is like, say,
What portion will they start at first?
yeah,
Okay.
this 1 million should go to this because it's a no-brainer and it has to be done and it'll be blah, blah, blah. But the rest is up to review. I mean, will that include some kind of recommendation of phases, or that's up to the engineer that we hire after they do it?
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, to answer your question, yes, they will provide a recommendation, and they have, when the county and land use and I met briefly with the Army Corps shortly after the August 19th meeting, they did mention, because of the funding that we have and frankly the time constraint, that would make the most sense, one, to start from bottom up, right, Southern Fairmont, Central, and then Northern, and then just because of the phase, Southern Fairmont would essentially be covered under this $5 million grant, so they would provide that recommendation. But anything more specific, like where in Southern Fairmont, that would be up to the engineering firm that we hire. Any other questions?
No, I have concerns because I know we've gone through a bidding process that took longer than expected before. And to do, you know, the garage is different. But, yeah, so start work in the spring, which is probably what they have to do anyway because of frozen ground or whatever. But, yeah, so anything we can do at any step along the way to knock off a month or two, that would be to our benefit, I think.
I will also point out, because that's one of the reasons why, you know, I got the grant writer, because there's such importance and such urgency on this. You know, this is a little bit outside my wheelhouse, so for me to take on this, or for anyone on the board to take on this, would take a little bit of extra time. Grants are extremely time consuming. But I'll also add that this group in particular, right, they have Kathy Pecor and Kate Gray. I'm sure other members of the board, you know, Jim, Aaron, you know, we've worked with them. I think anyone that knows them knows that they don't mess around. They are extremely on top of it, to the point where if I don't respond to an email within an hour, I'm getting nonstop phone calls that I need to respond to said email. And like, for example, the RFQ was like 10 pages. They started this timeline literally last week. Literally right before this meeting, about an hour before, I received a copy of the RFQ in my inbox, and they're requesting legal review, and then we're meeting on Friday to approve the RFQ so it can go out next week. So they're I would say they're very ambitious. So I am confident in their ability, but yeah, we do have a timeline here.
Okay, thank you.
It seems like a pretty aggressive timeline, hoping we can get it all done.
Yeah, and I also would like to say too to the board, so today I am presenting the timeline, I'm giving an update, but you know, as part of the services from the grant writers, they will be coming to present at our meetings every month, because they will then be, you know, giving a more thorough update. And again, I will also say that this goes for anything at the township, but even especially at this project, because it's such a large project. And in fact, the folks at Accenture said that this $5 million project is one of the largest ARPA-funded projects in the country, so there's a lot of eyes on this. But you know, there's a very thorough process, you know, interviews of the firms, there's reviews, tons of emails, meetings. So if anyone on the board at any point would like to be a part of that, whether it's included in those meetings or in those emails, please let me know. I am more than happy to include you on any of that. I will do my best to keep you all posted, but if in the meantime, in between meetings, you want to be a part of anything, please let me know.
I would like to.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, Moving on now to past and upcoming events. I won't go over all the past and upcoming events. Again, past events, we did have the Army Corps present. We did have Will County EMA give a presentation not too long ago. And part of that presentation was it's kind of like a part of the checklist for us to be considered formally as an emergency shelter. We already have everything we need to be considered that. Nothing really needs to change, it's just on paper. And again, the one, obviously we want to help the community, and then one thing about being labeled emergency shelter is that opens a huge amount of funding. And again, it was actually these same grant writers that did some pro bono work for us earlier this year that we were able to get allocated about $2.3 million under Lauren Underwood's office. Now, I do have to speak with her once again to make sure it was appropriated in the federal budget. I know when I spoke with them in July, it was passed, but that $2.3 million will then be allocated towards the township and include, building improvements. So that would go towards, HVAC. That would go towards, any bathroom or the food pantry, freezers, even the parking lot. So that's why I have the presentation on here.
Have the, like a backup generating system?
Yes, and that's actually how it first started, because I know last year we had a pretty bad storm, and I remember, staff and I, we were here at like 5 and 6 in the morning because we had to, manually lock the doors and chain them, and we had to get trucks coming in to, take all the food pantry food and the food on Meals on Wheels, and we found we didn't have a generator. So at first we looked for a grant for the generator, and we got a grant for about 100, and then back in February we found out that the federal government had cut said grant. So then Congresswoman Lauren Underwood reached out to us, reached out to many groups, and about 20 people applied for her grant, and I think only about 3 received them. And part of the reason why we were able to receive such a grant was because we have so many essential services here, like Meals on Wheels, the food pantry, etc. So a generator is very important. But yeah, the generator would be the #1 priority. Okay, for upcoming events, I won't read through all of them. I just want to highlight 2. So one, for this Friday, the Village of Romaville at Village Hall, from 6 to 10:30, there's going to be the annual Hispanic Heritage Celebration. We do have a booth. I will be there. Anyone is welcome to join, but I understand it's also a Friday. And then the White Oak Library Fall Fest, that was for this Saturday. I'm usually manning that booth, but I did unfortunately have, very urgent matter come up, so I won't be able to attend. So that's one thing. And then the third thing is I sent it in an email to everyone, but I realized I forgot to include it. On the agenda is, next Tuesday at Carillon, not Carillon Lakes. So Carillon will be giving a presentation with Plainfield Township, similar to when we presented at Grand Haven or Carillon Lakes. We're just giving a 40 to 60 minute presentation on the services we provide. Everyone here is welcome, and if any of the board members would like some speaking time, please let me know. We could, squeeze you in. All right, any final questions or comments from the board?
I had something on my calendar about a meeting at Shiloh Church, like Thursday or something. Was that connected? Do you know of anything that's connected with the Fairmont project around that, or might have been discussed?
Is that Thursday at 11?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be brief. So essentially, I think I mentioned this to the board in an email, but generally speaking, there's leaders of the Fairmont community and the Shiloh Church community. A few of them are here in the audience today, so thank you for coming. We meet on an ad hoc basis, that's roughly once every quarter, and members of Will County Land Use, the county, and the township are invited. And what we do is we discuss just general timeline of long-term projects, but also we focus on small improvements, right? Like we need a stop sign at such a place, or we need to trim trees at such a place. So really it's just we're meeting on Thursday to just some updates like that.
Okay. And anybody from the community can go, or no? Is that a private meeting?
I think it's a private meeting, but I'm sure the board, is welcome to go. As long as we have to respect the Open Meetings Act. But I'm sure having one board member there would be fine.
When you mentioned what you didn't have on there about Caroline Lakes, Tuesday the 16th, 40 to 60-minute presentation on the services, what time is that taking place?
Sure. So it's at Carillon, not Caroline Lakes.
Oh, it's just the same, okay.
Yeah.
That, not Caroline Lakes. Okay.
Right.
So
'Cause
that
I-
was
I-
just take out the lakes.
Correct. I sent out an email to the board, but again, I forgot to include it on here. So next Tuesday, 2 p.m. at Carillon,
Okay.
presentation. It's about 40-minute presentation on the township services that Lockport and Plainfield Township provide. Last 20 minutes are reserved for Q&A. We do have one coming up for Caroline Lakes in October. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I'll be sure that's on the October agenda. Cool. All right, well, seeing as there's no final questions or comments from the board, if I could entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Dean Rowley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.